Good morning, it's Shanna. This week I want to do a walkthrough of Little Witchcrafts Oracle by Michelle Peters and illustrated by Jasleni Brito. I do not have my glasses on, I think that's what that says. Let me put those on so I can actually function. Yes, I don't know that I've pronounced her name correctly, but you can see it there. So, this deck, why did I buy this deck? Well, I will tell you, when I first saw it on Etsy, because it kept popping up on my, I guess, for lack of a better term, my For You page, my home page, whenever I logged into Etsy. And it's cute. I really liked the artwork, you know, and I popped in and I flipped through a few of the images and I was like, it's just not really for me. Like, I have a couple other things that are similar and I just thought it wasn't for me. Moved on. Didn't save it or anything like that. And a few weeks ago, I saw this deck on Erin of the Witch of Saturn on her YouTube channel. She featured it and she showed a few of the cards and said how much she enjoyed the cardstock. And I went back to Etsy and I popped open the images, flipped through them again, and I came to, I'll put a screenshot here on the screen just so that you can read the whole thing. But I came to this image and it talked about how the creator's grandfather, her 8th great-grandfather, was one of the people accused of and hanged for being a witch in Salem on September 22nd, 1692. And my stomach kind of dropped because that is the same day that my grandmother was hanged, Mary Ayer Parker. And so I quickly did a quick Google search and yeah, they were hanged together. And I don't know, I just felt this like immediate connection to not only the deck, but the creator, because I thought, what are the odds that, you know, Etsy kept trying to show me, right? The universe, whatever you want to call it. Etsy showed me this deck multiple times and I wasn't getting it. I was like, no, I don't need that. And then because Erin showed it and it, you know, it popped up again, I don't know. It's crazy how the universe works. Regardless, I messaged Michelle and gave her a little story. You know, I was like, oh, hey, love your deck. I'm excited to, you know, see that you've put it out in the world. And also, my grandmother was hanged with your grandfather. Same day. They probably talked to each other. You know, they probably comforted each other in some ways. I just thought that was such a cool connection. Just a tiny way that, like, the universe brings us together in uncommon ways, and I just thought that was really cool. So of course I had to buy the deck. I had to wait because I wanted to wait for my birthday to treat myself, and super fast shipping, I will say. So let's go ahead and dig into it. I want to look at the guidebook first because there are a few things I want to point out before we dig into the deck itself. So here's the inside. It's beautiful. You know, people are just really going the extra mile when it comes to these boxes because there's just a lot of detail. I won't read this, but feel free to pause and read at your leisure. But yeah, it's a beautiful box. There are the backs, and the cardstock it's thick. I haven't tried shuffling it yet because I wanted to leave it in order. We will shuffle it at the end of the video just to see. Oops, we're not shuffling it. Habit. Okay, let's get into the guidebook. So I'm going to set those aside for now. Beautiful guidebook, well designed. You know, it's your typical, it's, I believe, saddle stitched. There are, you can see the, you know, the threads on the inside of it. So I'm going to I just kind of want to, I didn't read every single word, but I did go through last night and flip through each of the first pages to kind of get an idea of what Michelle had to say about this. And there are a few things I want to point out. So she says, this deck is a labor of love, a tribute to my 8th great-grandfather, Samuel Wardell, one of the 19 individuals hanged during the Salem witch trials on September 22nd, 1692, and to my Nana, Shirley Wardell Palin, who ignited my passion for history and our family's remarkable legacy. And then she goes on, she dedicates it to a couple other family members. She says she uncovered Samuel Wardell's story and in doing so found the path that led me to embrace my identity as a witch. She goes on to talk about her father. She says, as you work with these cards, remember they're more than tools, they are companions. Each one carries layers of meaning rooted in the 17th century traditions, yet alive with the insight they offer you today. Like the threads of the tapestry, your interpretations and intentions will weave into the energy of these cards, creating something deeply personal and uniquely yours. She talks about kind of the history of how she got started with cards in general, being gifted her first tarot deck. She says she's collected hundreds of decks, much like many of us. She says Samuel Wardell was known to be a fortune teller who practiced palmistry, cast lots, and read cards, simple acts of seeking guidance that tragically were twisted into accusations during the Salem witch trials and led to his hanging, cutting his life short at the age of 49. And, 49, I think my grandmother was 50, if I remember correctly. 50 or 50 something, I can't remember. She was at least 50. And I don't know about the others, but I know that it's been said that a lot of times people who were accused and hanged as witches were older people. So for whatever reason, that was a thing. It's just, I don't know. It's just so interesting that they were at a similar age. And I just really felt like on some level, even if it was just a passing glance of, solidarity between these two people, they were there together. And that made me feel very, very drawn to this deck and very connected to it. And I just kind of wanted to put this out into the universe for anyone else who maybe had someone there. So she goes on to say, like many settlers, Samuel's family crossed the Atlantic seeking a new beginning, bringing with them traditions, beliefs, and folk magics rooted in the old world. Let's see. I won't read the whole thing, but there were just certain things. Says, creating this deck feels like an act of remembrance and reclamation. It honors the traditions my ancestors carried across the sea and preserved through generations. It's a tapestry woven from my grandmother's quiet magic, my ancestors' courage, and my own deep love of history and the practice of magic. And I don't know that there's, there's so many different labels of being a witch, a green witch, a hedge witch, all the things, right? And I don't think that there's a technical term, but if I was going to choose something for myself, it would be house witch. I enjoy being at home. I enjoy sewing and the cooking, and I enjoy that art of homemaking. And so if I was going to label myself as a witch, I think I would be a house witch. And so just her talking about tapestry and weaving threads, I mean, you can see it here with my, thread that I keep on my altar. I change these out, each month seasonally for different colors. And I don't know, it was one more way that I felt really connected to this. So she goes on to talk about colonial magic. It was born from necessity, a blend of European, African, and indigenous traditions that formed a practical, earth-centered system of folk practices. It wasn't elaborate or ceremonial, but simple, resourceful, and rooted in survival. This magic reflected a world where spirituality and practicality intertwined, offering comfort, protection, and guidance amid hardship. And then it goes on about that. It talks about folk remedies and herbalism, divination and fortune telling, protection and warding. And this is all in regards to how colonists, interacted with these things. So I thought that was interesting. It just gives me a little piece of where my grandmother was coming from, how she lived. For nothing else, just having that connection to her felt very strong with this deck. She goes into faith and magic, cunning folk and healers, witch trials, the shadow of fear, a legacy of resilience. What are little witchcrafts? Little witchcrafts are the quiet, everyday magics woven into life, whispered blessings over fevers, herbs planted under a waxing moon, charms buried for protection. These simple acts were not for spectacle, but for survival, connection, and hope. And it was that connection, when I read that, I just thought, that was when it sort of occurred to me that, all of these people, I'm sure, had some kind of connection on some kind of level. But just knowing that, I don't know, I think I've said it enough. You understand what I'm trying to say. So it says, the Salem witch trials of 1692 condemned the very practices that were common in colonial life. Casting lots, using herbs, and reading omens, key figures in the trials like Cotton Mather and Governor Phipps engaged in similar practices, yet fueled persecution. Did I say fooled? Fueled persecution. The same magics used for healing and protection were twisted into evidence of hearsay, or heresy, we'll get the words right, disproportionately targeting women, healers, and outsiders. By reclaiming the term Little Witchcrafts, this deck restores dignity to these traditions, honoring those who suffered and ensuring their wisdom endures. I'm so happy that I found this deck, and that, the universe, spirit, my guides just kept pushing until I picked this up. So she does go into a note about the cards with Native American influence, and we'll get into that when we pull the cards, but I wanted to read what she wrote because I felt like this was an important piece. It says, colonial life was profoundly shaped by indigenous knowledge and traditions. Native peoples taught settlers how to grow crops, navigate the land, and survive harsh conditions. They introduced herbal medicine, nature-based spirituality, and seasonal practices that became integral to colonial folk magic. However, this exchange was often unequal, marred by tension, exploitation, and loss. Despite this, Native traditions endured, resilient and rooted in wisdom, community, and harmony with nature. In honoring these contributions, I have chosen to include symbols inspired by Native spirituality within this deck. My intention is to pay tribute to their resilience while acknowledging the complex history surrounding these practices. My paternal grandfather's grandmother was said to be 100% Abenaki. I'm not sure, I've not heard that title. Making my grandfather 25% and myself 6.25%. While I do not have formal tribal affiliation, my family has long cherished this ancestral connection, and it remains a deeply meaningful part of my spiritual identity. This deck reflects that heritage as well as my respect for indigenous teachings and their lasting impact on colonial era practices. I approached the inclusion of these symbols with reverence and care, recognizing the importance of respectful representation. I sought to honor their depth and resilience, not to appropriate, but to illuminate their legacy. I encourage seekers to work with these cards in the same spirit, approaching them with humility, gratitude, and honor. And I thought that was beautiful. So I appreciate that little tidbit, because I, even, myself included, I get uncomfortable when I see things that I'm like, should they be having that? But I also think that it's an important aspect to have in a deck where it's relevant, right? Because it allows us to learn something, it allows us to understand something, and it allows us to relive these things that sometimes get swept under the rug, just whether intentionally or just through time. So I appreciate that. And then she goes into how to use the cards, suggestions with using the deck, journaling, magical workings. She talks about reversed cards, conducting a reading with Little Witchcraft Oracle cards, preparing for the spells in the deck. And I believe every single card entry has a spell, which I love. I love that. It just makes I don't know about you guys, but I struggle with coming up with ways to incorporate witchcraft and magic in my everyday life. And so if I'm going to sit down and do a quick morning pull and there's a spell that goes along with that card, I love that, because generally I can quickly do that spell and I feel connected to my own magic, whether it's 5 minutes or, a 4-day process. If I only have 5 minutes, I really like that, and I can go about my day feeling like I connected to myself in that way. So she talks about staying safe, setting the mood, gathering supplies if needed, grounding and centering, your magic your way, card draws and spreads, single card draw. And then she goes into spreads. She's got a ton of good stuff in here. I love this. It's a thick book where there's a lot of information, a lot of things to sink your teeth into. She talks about spells and incantations. Oh. Nikki Wardell. Each card in this deck includes a suggested spell and incantation written by Nikki Wardell Sleeth, a direct descendant of Samuel Wardell and the founder of my coven. Oh, okay. These spells are intentionally simple and accessible, focusing on intention over complexity. You'll find them directly tied to each card, making them easy to use during readings, rituals, or moments of reflection. Feel free to adapt them or create your own. Magic works best when it feels personal and natural to you. I love that. I love that we have decks out there that are created by witches, and for anyone who wants to use them. But I love the magic and the energy and the intention that goes into this for all the reasons that we've just mentioned. And just, you know, the idea that it was created by a witch just makes it that much more special for me. So I won't go into too much. It talks about the symbol. It goes into that, and then sort of the meaning. And then you've got kind of a journal prompt here, it looks like. And then you go into spell for grounding, and you do get a keyword, and that's on the card as well. So it talks about the supplies, and then it gives you a step-by-step of how to do it, and you get like a full page of that. And then it explains what the point of the spell is, which I love. So this says the spell reinforces your connection to stability and resilience, empowering you to stay grounded as you navigate life's challenges. Just as an anchor steadies a ship, your intentions can tether you to a sense of calm, focus, and security, no matter how unpredictable the seas may be. And I just love that. You know, it's not just a book of spells that's like, here's some stuff you can do, good luck. It's here are your tools. This is the step-by-step, and here's the point of it. I think it's a fabulous tool. So I'm excited about the guidebook. Oh, I just flipped this open. I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything in the back. And it says a note about the hexafoil on the back of the cards. The hexafoil, or daisy wheel, was a 17th century symbol etched on homes, barns, tools, and graves to protect against evil and honor the dead. Its endless loops, symbolizing eternal connection and protection, reflect the heart of Little Witchcrafts. A bridge between folk magic, ancestors, and the guidance these cards provide. And then there's a picture of the creator. And then it just talks about her. She says she's a direct descendant of Samuel Wardell, one of the individuals hanged during the Salem witch trials. Here it looks like she's got a website, thecharmedoracle.com, and more information about her, which I love. And then we've got a page on the illustrator and graphic designer, Jasleni Brito. And then the incantation writer is Nikki Wardell Sleeth, as mentioned. Interesting. Feel free to pause that. I'll be reading that later on my own. But I appreciate that she gives everyone a shout out at their own page. And then it talks about parting words for the deck and the book. So I am thrilled with this. So very thrilled. At the end of this video, we will look at some pairs. Actually, we might just, I don't know, at least one, because I already kind of found one that's probably going to be its forever match. I'll decide if I've got more to show. Anyway, here are the cards. So we have the anchor, stability, the antique key with unlocking, the bee, truth, the bell, summons, the bellows, renewal, the black cat, familiar, the black dog, omen, the cardstock is matte, so, as happens with matte, they are a little bit, they're not slippy. So I would not say they're sticky by any means, but they're not slippy. So sometimes they're a bit of a challenge to get picked up off the stack. So buttons, I feel like this sort of plays into my house witch identity, for lack of a better way to put it. I have a huge jar of buttons, I feel like a lot of us do. They were my grandmother's, and I have like a tiny little, it's probably like this. It's a music box, and it has just a little section in it where you can put things, and I have my own collection of buttons started. So I have buttons from some of the outfits that were my kids' first outfits, little dresses. There was some strawberry shaped buttons, just little things that looking at them now, I'm reminded of these little things. So I loved this card because you've got this connection to so many things, in just a tiny little package. All right, we have the candle with hope, the cauldron, transformation, the coffin, finality, the corn husk doll, celebration, the cornbread, sustenance, the cross. I will say, I find it strange, and maybe I'm just not, maybe it's mentioned in the book, I don't know. I don't love the way the is before everyone. I find that unnecessary, but so far that's literally my only gripe. I do appreciate that there's the cross in it because, back then, probably most of the people there were Christian, and so this was a big theme for them, good, bad, or otherwise, right? We've got the crossroads with choice, the crystal ball, intuition, the fiddle, joy, and I just love this one. As a fan of Little House on the Prairie, you know what I'm talking about. Pa had his fiddle, and those were always the happiest memories, you know, on the show and in the book. I just love that. I love it. Obviously, we're talking about way earlier than Little House on the Prairie, but that's what this card reminds me of. And then we have the firefly with enchantment, the four-leaf clover and luck, the gallows, the reckoning. And this one, I will insert another picture. There's a picture, I mean, when I found my grandmother, this picture was attached to, I guess, her write-up. I don't know what they're called. On the Ancestor website that my mom uses and lets me, you know, log in and play with or go through. That's where I first saw this image. And when I looked up Samuel Wardell, I saw that this image was also there. So, you know, it must just be, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if that image was specifically drawn from that day or if it's just a general image that's used to talk about the witch. I'm not sure. I thought this was fascinating. Not to be, what's the word? Not to be morbid, but I am curious which noose was my grandmother's. Is that weird? I don't know. I don't know if that's a weird thing to say, but that's where my head is. That's maybe not funny, but it kind of is funny. Okay, it's not funny. That's what I'm thinking. I would like to know which one was hers because I feel like there would be a special connection if I were path working with this card or just to be able to focus on that specific space on the card. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. So then we have the Great Oak, which I'm assuming, again, if we're, you know what, let's pop in. I think I briefly read the write-up for Gallows, but I did not read the Great Oak. So it says, the oak tree has long been a symbol of power, endurance, and wisdom across cultures. In colonial America and European traditions, it was revered as sacred, often associated with divinity, protection, and resilience. Its towering branches offered shelter, while its deep roots anchored it firmly in the earth, embodying stability and strength. Oaks served as community landmarks, meeting places, and sources of spiritual inspiration, representing the enduring power of nature and the wisdom gained through life's cycles. The Great Oak card draws from this legacy, reminding you to tap into your inner strength and resilience. Like the oak, you have the capacity to weather storms, grow steadily, and stand tall in the face of challenges. Deeply rooted in the foundations of who you are, the Great Oak card calls you to reflect on the strength within you and the roots that ground your life. Where do you find your stability and endurance? This card encourages you to cultivate patience, honor your heritage, and draw on the wisdom of your values and experiences. Just as the oak grows deliberately and endures through seasons, this card reminds you to trust in your capacity to thrive over time. By grounding yourself in what is solid and meaningful, you create a foundation for resilience and lasting growth. Embrace your strength and let it guide you, knowing that, like the mighty oak, you are a force of stability and endurance. And then there's a spell for resilience. The supplies are this card, a tree nearby, an oak tree if possible, or a natural object that symbolizes grounding, such as a stone or piece of wood, and a quiet space outdoors or near nature. And then it goes into, and then it gives you a little incantation, and then how to close the ritual, which I always appreciate that. I have a hard time learning how, I have a hard time closing things, like finishing a paragraph, how to finalize projects, anyway. So I appreciate that. And then it says, this spell encourages you to connect with the enduring power of nature, using its grounding energy to strengthen your resolve and build a resilient foundation for growth and stability. And I love that. All right, next we have the Grimoire with knowledge, the Harvest Cornucopia with gratitude, the Horseshoe, protection, the Iron Nails, integrity, the Lantern, remembrance, the Lighthouse, guidance, the Lightning, danger, the Lone Wolf, independence, the Memento Mori, ancestors, the Moon, mystery, the Native American medicine wheel with balance, the owl, wisdom, the pendulum, spirit communication, the playing cards with divination, the puppet, influence, the potions, healing, the quill and ink, expression, the quilt square, community, the raven, prophecy, the rooster with courage. We have the ship and exploration. Let's switch sides here. Getting a little bit of a shadow. The spirit drum, rhythm. The stone hearth, respite. The sunflower, support. The tobacco plant, offering. The weather vane, direction. The weaving loom, intention. The well with dreams. The witch bottle, magic, which I love this because this is very much like, you know, I have one of these jars sitting next to me on my shelf. I have my thimbles here on my altar. Again, monthly, I have different ones for each month. And then the thread and needle, I think, now that I say that, I need to get a needle for my threads. I feel like, interesting that I've not thought of that before. So I will be doing that. And then last we have the woodpecker with persistence, which I love, you know, birds and all that. Okay, let's shuffle this. I'm gonna zoom out just a hair. So it is thick, but it shuffles nicely. It's not a struggle by any means. I think it'll be one that softens up with time. It does feel familiar. This cardstock feels familiar. I'm trying to show you the shuffle and it messes me up. It feels a little bit like Blue Angel. Oracle. That's kind of what this feels like for reference. Okay, so let's do a quick overhand, and then I want to show you what it looks like with Age of Witchery Tarot deck, because I love this deck and I do use it, but not often and not regularly. I've tended to pull it out in October for obvious reasons. And I recently, just a few months ago, put it on my shelf in the area where I keep all of my ancestor decks, the ones that I use to look at past lives or work with ancestors or my grandmother. And I just thought, you know, for that purpose, I wanted to try and use this to connect with my grandmother, Mary Ayer, because, you know, this was the time, well, I guess it says the 1700s, but that's pretty close. The late 1600s was when they were alive. So it's very similar. I feel like back then, not a lot changed very quickly. So, but I haven't done it yet. You know, I can flip through the images and I can like imagine that time period, but I haven't, you know, I have not dived in to do a reading with it. But when I saw this deck, I knew that I wanted to try them together. And so I pulled them out last night and they're beautiful together. So I do believe this will be a bonded pair. Do a quick shuffle. I like to let them feel the energy, each other's energy, before I show them together. So come back in just a little. And I thought, not only do they look good together, but they make sense. Like their time frame is the same. So we have the Hanged Man, Woodpecker with Persistence, and the Wheel of Fortune. And I believe this was on, you know, I favorited it on my Etsy, and I was given a coupon, I want to say for 15% off. So it was like 30 something. So it was very inexpensive. And literally after I ordered it, I got it in like 2 days. So maybe she's in California or Colorado. I don't know, somewhere near Oregon anyway, because it was really quick shipping. So we have 2 of blades, the firefly with enchantment, and 6 of roots. I like the synchronicities here where it's sort of just hovering, you know. 10 of blades, the well with dreams, and 7 of blades. The Pope, the witch bottle, and 8 of blades. I like where we've got the 8, you know, the 8 of blades or swords, kind of that, the idea of surrendering to whatever situation you're in. But we also have this kind of the same concept of, you know, these nails being trapped in the bottle, or whatever you want those nails to symbolize, being trapped in the bottle. And then we have the Pope here, you know, over these people. 6 of vessels with the poppet and influence, and death. Ooh, interesting. Not only, you know, kind of this concept of death and the poppet, but also like it looks like he's holding his own little sickle here. That's really cool. 6 of cups. Oh, interesting. I like that a lot, actually. Knight of rods, the stone hearth with respite, and 9 of vessels. That's interesting. Considering the Knight of Rods is very like fiery energy, right? Like impulsive, jumping on whatever it is they're doing. He is headed to this, you know, maybe whatever it was he was dealing with. He's now moving into this restful space. And the 9 of Cups is kind of that. He's now being rewarded, you know, with this rest. I like that. All right, we have King of Rods, the Cauldron and Transformation with 9 of Blades. I don't know, I like that a lot. 4 of Blades, the Potions and Judgment. I'm seeing this one as sit back and relax, your potion will do the job, and karma will catch up as needed. I like that a lot. Okay. Let's look at one more, and then I will grab a couple other decks and we can take a quick look. So we have the Hermit, the Memento Mori with Ancestors, and Queen of Rods. I'm seeing this as a quest to connect with your ancestors, and perhaps one of your, you know, the one that you're trying to connect with is being resistant for some reason. Okay, let's grab another deck. I have a couple that I want to try. Okay, first up, let's try Little Bird. Let's get it out of the way. I have not tried pairing it yet, and I am curious about how it will match aesthetically and otherwise. All right, 7 of Swords. Oh, let's flip a card since we've already been on that one. 7 of Swords, the Sunflower, and Support. To me, I mean, since we're in the, you know, in this world of this deck and colonial life and threads and tapestries and all that, I like the way this bird is facing the sunflower, sort of giving this thread in an offering to support maybe whatever is coming, whatever's on the horizon. That's what I'm seeing on this one. All right, we have Queen of Wands, the Coffin, and Knight of Wands. Queen of Wands, Finality, and Knight of Wands. Well, I do like the coloration. I like that this is, you know, a warm brown versus a lot of the decks this style are sort of that cool parchmenty, and I don't think they look great most of the time with Little Bird, so I do like this warm brown. So color-wise, I think it looks good together. We've got 2 of Pentacles, the Black Dog, and Ace of Cups. Interesting. I like the way this feels like we're looking anywhere but at the omen, right? Like it's right here in front of us, but we're looking anywhere but. And this Ace of Cups is like, pay attention. All right, 9 of Wands, the Fiddle with Joy, and 8 of Swords. I won't decipher each of these. The Emperor, the Grimoire, and 5 of Pentacles. I love this. I like the fact that these two decks together are the descendants of these people. And I love that energy here on my table. This feels really good to me. Four of Wands, the pendulum, spirit communication, and strength. That's beautiful. All right, one more. The King of Wands, the owl with wisdom, and the lovers. I like the way these two trees are both like leaning into this wisdom. Interesting. Okay. I would say this is a winner. I like the energy of them very much. I think they will speak well with each other. All right, next up I have Outgrow Yourself. I've said it before, I don't generally pair this with anything, but I wanted to see how the black backgrounds looked with this deck, because it does have dark aspects. Little Witchcrafts does have kind of these darker tones. And I like the idea of, you know, the intention behind the oracle with the tarot. Okay, we have the Hermit. Let's skip this one. The Lone Wolf and Wealth. Interesting that we have the Hermit again. Opulence is a state of mind. Futility, the great oak with strength and interference. Plant, forget, and harvest with temperance. The crystal ball and intuition. Trust and surrender, the universe. I really do like this together. I think aesthetically it's a little not, you know, it's not 100%. Like it's not just like flowing or whatever, but I think the vibe of them together and the energy of them feels nice. Be there with truce, the bellows, and renewal. And Queen of Discs, how do I start valuing myself? All right, one more. The playing cards, divination, Knight of Wands, again, don't just wish it. And the Hanged Man, the grass is greener on the other side. I do like these together. I like their energies, and that is not something I usually say with Outgrow Yourself, because she's usually kind of a loner. But I think I could see myself using it with Little Witchcrafts. I think she likes this concept, the idea. Okay, next let's try the Wild Unknown Tarot. I haven't used this deck like at all yet. I've only had it for a few months, but I have it set aside to use specifically in spells. If I'm going to use a tarot deck with spells, this will be the one I intend to use. That may change. Like I said, I haven't done it yet, so depending on the results of that. But I thought the artwork might look nice together. Ooh, the Raven and a Raven. All right, what do we have? Three of Cups, the Raven and Prophecy, and the Hierophant. This feels very fortune teller-y. That's not a word. There's a word for that. It's not coming to my mind. We have Death and Iron Nails and the Tower again. Interesting. With Integrity. Did I already say that? I could see these working very well as a spell deck duo. Daughter of Swords, the Cornbread and Sustenance with the Lovers. I think this is another one where aesthetically it's not jumping out at me, but I feel like the energy could definitely get on with each other. Father of Swords, the Bell and Summons with the Three of Swords. Interesting. All right, Two of Pentacles, the Lightning and Danger, and Son of Wands. We have 8 of Wands, the Ship and Exploration, and Mother of Cups. This feels very, my mind keeps saying ominous, but that's not omnipotent. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, omnipotent, fortune tellery. Like we've got this movement, you know, the 8 of Wands movement and the exploration, and the Mother of Cups to me is like, no, go back. That's, you know, danger, danger, danger. I don't know. That's what I'm seeing. All right, one more. Father of Wands, the Gallows and Reckoning, and Justice. Yes, there will be justice. Ooh, I like that a lot. Okay. I think these will be great together for using a spell work. All right, I have one more that I'm not really sure of, but I pulled it just the same, and that's the Head Witch. Just given the title, I wanted to see what they look like together. I think Green Witch would look very well with this. Work very well. But Green Witch is downstairs, and I don't feel like going downstairs. So this will be the last one. Okay. We have King of Swords, the Lighthouse and Guidance, and the Nine of Wands. The Tower. Man, we just keep getting the Tower. The Bee and Ace of Swords with Truth. Very interesting. 5 of Cups, the Candle and Hope, and the Crone. Or the Magician, right? No, the High Priestess. Excuse me. I feel like this one has something to say. I'm not sure about like aesthetic-wise, but I do feel like these two want to chat. 5 of Swords, the Spirit Drum with Rhythm, and 6 of Cups. That's really lovely together. I like those 3. The Emperor, the Crossroads and Choice, and 2 of Pentacles. 3 of Pentacles, the Weather Vane and Direction, with 8 of Wands. I think these two want to speak. I'm not sure that they're quite on the same page yet, but I do see them working quite nicely together. Sorry, my mind keeps wanting to interpret each of these cards. I get distracted. I have not yet done an interview. So let's do a new question. I don't usually ask this question, but I want to ask this deck, and I will count it as part of its interview for myself because I keep a little index card with all of my decks recently. This is a new practice for me, and I did get the idea from Kate at Moonflower Moments. But I like to interview my deck, write the answers on an index card, and I keep it with the deck. So usually I ask it to introduce itself. How will we best work together? What are you here to teach me? And then I ask it to give me a card of how it views me. But this time I'm going to add a 5th question. I think that was 4, right? I'm going to add a 5th, but we'll call this the first question. I won't go into all of them. I'm just going to ask one. I want to know what this deck thinks about the fact that its creator's grandfather and my grandmother knew each other. And now that I have this deck, I feel like there's this weird, not weird, I don't know if that's the right word. Synchronistic connection. How does this deck feel about that? I want to know what it thinks about that little connection. This is very much like Blue Angel cardstock. It is nice, but it does take a minute to break in. All right, how do you feel about the synchronistic connection between your creator and my great-grandmother being in the same place at the same time on the same day? Well, there you have it. Do I need to say anything else? I love this. I love the fact that there is a pentacle. I love the fact that it's spirit communication. I think the deck is inviting that connection and is willing and able. And there is a second card underneath. I don't think I'm going to ask a second question. Let's see what it, oh, there's 3. Ooh. The Owl with Wisdom, Coffin, and Finality. Wow, okay. Given the circumstances and asking how this deck feels about the synchronistic connection between myself, its creator, and our grandparents, I feel like I'm getting, the spirit communication seems simple. The owl seems simple, like they've got some wisdom to offer. The coffin to me is throwing me a little bit. Let's pop open the guidebook and see what it says. It says, in colonial America, the coffin symbolized mortality and closure, reflecting both the inevitability of death and the finality of life's chapters. Handcrafted by families or communities, coffins represented simplicity, respect for life cycles, and the sacredness of endings. For Puritans, they served as reminders of impermanence and the need to live with purpose. Burial rites and coffin preparation were more than practical tasks. They were rituals of release that honored both the living and the departed, reinforcing the importance of closure and legacy. Okay. So I won't finish, or I'll finish, but just a second. I'm getting that while they're willing and able and here to speak, but I feel like wow, I'm getting excited. Let me take a breath. For me, based on what I'm reading in the book, I'm hearing that they never had the finality and closure that they deserved in the way that they were killed. And not necessarily that they need that now at this point, but the fact that they have more things to say. They never got that finality. So they're like, okay, we never got that closure, but we're here, so let's talk. That's what I'm getting for this. This reverence for endings extends beyond physical death, reminding us to honor and let go of what has reached its natural conclusion. The coffin card calls you to reflect on areas of your life that may be coming to a close. Are there relationships, habits, or situations that no longer serve your growth? This card encourages you to release them with grace, trusting that endings make space for renewal and transformation. Much like the finality of a coffin's seal, true closure allows you to move forward unburdened. While endings may feel difficult, they are a necessary part of life's cycle, clearing the way for rebirth and new beginnings. Honor what's passing and embrace the opportunities that lie ahead. I'm excited to have this deck. I'm excited to work with it. I'm excited to see how it pairs and the readings that I can do with it in an attempt to work with my grandmother. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time now. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me and looking at going through Little Witchcrafts Oracle with me. That's all I have for this week. So I will catch up with you guys next time.